All right, welcome to the show. I got with me John Harper. It's bright and early there, isn't it, man? How you doing?
You're not too bad, thanks. Daylight savings helping. It's getting a bit brighter.
Are you nice and caffeinated for for the morning?
I'm not actually. No, I've got a brew ready for me, but I forgot to grab it. Never mind.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Do you got somebody there you can bring it to? Or do you need to step away for a second?
That's all right. Everyone else is asleep still.
All right. Well, I appreciate you getting up early and taking the time to hang out with me, man.
No
That's
worries, mate.
awesome. So before we, jump into what you do and everything, let's get to know you. What's your history with gaming, man? What'd you cut your teeth on?
Um, I think my first computer game was Chucky Egg on an Amstrad with a two-tone monochrome screen, dark green or light green. And Chucky Egg was, about 20 pixels or something. So that was my first game, and I guess the one that stands out the most for me is Elite on the Atari ST. Probably played most of my gaming as a kid on Atari, and yeah, uh, just a lot of back in those days. I guess that's the late '80s. A lot of platform games or very early driving games, um, and then yeah, all the way up through to university. Really, I sort of played a lot of games. The sequels to Elite. Um, Games like Mafia. I started getting into those the multiplayer online RPGs. Played a bit of World of Warcraft. Generally, sort of stuck to the single player games. A bit of Homeworld. Yep. So the science fiction, I guess, sort of appealed to me more than the other games. Need for Speed, I played a lot of that. Yeah,
All
quite
right.
a eclectic variation, really. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you have a particular favorite, like either favorite console or favorite game?
I've only really played from the Atari to PC. I never really got into the consoles. Actually, I've always been a PC guy.
Oh, okay.
Um, if I was to look back, what's the kind of game that I'd always sort of go back to? It was First Encounters, which is the third or the second sequel, third game in the row for Elite, which is an open-ended science fiction space simulator game.
All right.
Mm.
Well, cool, man. That's awesome. So let's get into what you're doing. What you reached out to me on Twitter, I believe, and what is it that you do in the game industry?
Well, I've had a bit of involvement with Elite Dangerous, which is the fourth game of Elite. It's a pretty special game to me, just growing up, I suppose. And in 2012, late 2012, they came on Kickstarter announcing they were going to make the fourth game. I thought, well, obviously this is really exciting. My ability and time to play it might be a bit limited, but I really want to be involved. And as part of the Kickstarter, they had a writer's pack, which allowed you to write an official piece of science fiction for it. And that sounded really, really cool. But the price for that was £4,500, which I didn't have. Um, but I made my own crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo.
Nice.
Got That was in American dollars. So it was like 7,500 US dollars. Got that, managed to buy it, and wrote a novel, and that was published by Fantastic Books Publishing in May this year. And I really enjoyed that, working with the computer game developers and making my game or my story quite aligned with the game. And then after that, I became involved in Shallow Space. Now it's in the theme of Homeworld. It's a real-time strategy, space simulator game, and yeah, I got in contact with the producer of that game, and now I'm the writer for that game. So I'm writing the plot, I'm writing the script for the game, I'm basically doing guides and information on all the backstory, so that the universe that the game is played in, I'm filling that out so it all makes sense and all the details are there, which then makes the game, the similitude of the game better. But also, I can then write all the tie-in fiction to go with it. So there'll be stories along with the game, and the game will have its own story. That's the plan.
Man, that's super cool. So you basically you went on a Kickstarter and saw these guys on there, and then you're like, I want to do that. But then you basically had to kickstart your funding so that you could do that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
That's great, man. I mean, that's great that you just took the initiative. I mean, some people will just look at that and say, "Ah, well, it's out of my reach. I can't do it." But you did it, man. That's so great. Wh-
yeah.
And so now you've got another gig, right? And so did they kind of like give you the characters, and then you got to come up with the story for this stuff, or has it kind of been free reign for you?
Uh, it's probably more towards the free reign area. So I have a lot of conversations with the main guy in the game. Um, Basically, gave me free reign to develop it, but within certain restrictions. So we decided how many solar systems, for example, are going to be in this universe, and then we sort of worked that out, or how many levels, if you will, are going to be in the game, and that allowed me to say, well, I've got this many worlds, and I sort of populated an area of space, the way I wanted it to be, as realistic as I thought I could be, and yeah, then started making up um, backstories for those planets, how they were settled, what kind of people settled them, how they evolved to the start of the game to make them, who they are, and some restrictions like the Navy is called the Terran Confederation Navy, and they do things a certain way. So I've got to work that, and I work backwards from those restraints that I have, there, and there, and work them back to a point so I can work them forward and make it all sort of organic from the restrictions that I've been given. So to actually use the game limitations to my advantage to actually make the story more complete.
That's so cool. That's great, man. They give you uh, that's just that creative freedom sounds like a lot of fun. It also sounds like since you're kind of working with somebody and knowing what the limitations are and everything like that, like does that help with like writer's block and that kind of thing because you kind of have an idea of what the universe is?
Yeah, it does really, and I mean it's really awesome. I mean, I've just got the to do whatever I want really. I mean, within reason, but I can do whatever I need to do, and yeah, a second. Hey, buddy, there you go.
Is
Okay,
a little one joining us?
that's right. Yeah. Just be quiet, buddy. Okay. You can watch and just be quiet. Okay. Quiet, buddy. Okay, I've got to get rid of him. Sorry. Hang on.
No, that's all right.
Quiet, buddy.
That's
Come
all
on.
right. We gotta take a little intermission here. He puts his little ones maybe in front of a TV or something. I'm not sure, but um, yeah. So I think I'll just edit all this out. Hey, we got a viewer. There is someone else here. I promise. They had their little ones wake up, so they're dealing with that, and they'll be right back. Hey, there he is.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sorry about
Yeah, no worries.
that. Um, saying yeah. I mean, it's because we're still working through the game. We're going for a Kickstarter, probably January, February next year, and then early access on Steam April, which has already been approved, which is pretty awesome. So right now I've got quite a bit of flexibility on what I work on. Trying to get a little bit of content onto the website every now and again, dribs and drabs of little vignette stories, or I've actually done a short story that I did in parts and put on the website. So if I get stuck on this thing, I can work on something else, and the guy says, look, I need some more details on this, and that gives me something else to work on. So I've basically got complete freedom. All I'm doing now is brainstorming and writing it down. Just for example, I was working on backstories for one solar system, and he said, look, we need to put a faction guide together so we can start working out the logos for all the various groups in the game. And so all that was pretty much in pencil notes somewhere anyway, so I was just sort of putting it together. That's 18 pages right now, and expanding. That's the kind of detail we're going into, even though it's a game. And I bet probably 90% of the detail that I come up with, you won't even know about from the game. But I think you'll get a sense that because all this thought's been put into it, it'll make it a bit richer. Plus, I've got all that stuff to then use for stories and stuff.
Gotcha. So where will a lot of this content be? Will it be on the site? Will it be in books within the game or something? Or how are you planning on getting that lore to the fans?
Um, yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really worked that one out yet. Most of it's probably just going to end up staying, on our Google Drives kind of thing. It's for the team's use. Um,
I
a
see.
lot of the details, there'll be a lot of details in the game, and I plan to have a lot of short stories and even a novel of the game, based in the game, where you'll be able to see a lot of it. But a lot of it's going to be just sitting on the hard drive at the end of the day. It's surplus to game requirements. It's just to fill in the blanks so that when I do write, I'm sort of I know as a writer what I'm writing about. Therefore, it sort of makes it a bit more real, if you will. Hopefully it comes through in the writing that this feels complete. I put in just enough little breadcrumbs of detail to make it give that big verisimilitude without bogging the story down with backstory. But I'm only able to put those breadcrumbs in if I've worked out the complete thing in the background. But it's fun. I like doing it. It's not waste of time or anything. I love it.
Yeah, so I mean, in a way, you're kind of helping the like the artists and everything. Kind, I mean, are you kind of describing this universe and describing these characters and stuff, and then they get to, I mean, I'm sure they have some creative freedom as well, but it kind of gives them something to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I'm a crap artist, but I can sketch things. Like I've got maps of the region of space that the game's set in, and then I've actually done sketches of the solar system, each solar system in the game. The sun is a Type B9 star, for example, and it's got this many planets, and they're this description, and this size, this orbit. I'm a bit into celestial mechanics, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I've gone into that detail, which the artists can use in game when they travel to those solar systems. But all the factions in the game, I'm describing then how they operate, what they do, and then a description of the logo as well. So any whatever stuff that gets produced graphically for them, they have an idea of the background of those people, so that can be done appropriately.
Yeah, very cool. That's definitely got to help with the creative process. So how did you get into writing, man? Is this something that's been a passion of yours for a while, or I mean, what's
Yeah.
that story?
Um, the first story I wrote was in first year of school, actually. It was called Short Circuit. It was my novelization of the movie Short Circuit. Johnny Five, the robot. Remember that one?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
a typical school story. One or two lines of text and a picture, and about I don't know 10 pages or something. And my teacher thought it was pretty impressive. We didn't have Duracell back in those days. The stuff you cover on the book. So she put some wallpaper on it, and then got me to read out in front of school assembly when I was 5 or maybe 6. It was a bit nerve-wracking. But yeah, no, I've been hooked ever since. I've been a writer ever since. Just writing rubbish really when I was young. Obviously, fan fiction things and my own little things, teaming up with friends. Um, I guess I started doing that stuff, writing seriously, as in sending stuff to publishers, short stories and the like, while I was at university. So I've probably been doing it 7 years, trying to get actual publication, but seriously writing probably three years, at night type thing. Yeah, so it's definitely one of my passions. And a life goal was to publish a book. I've done that, so that's pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's great. And this is something you're doing on the side right now.
That's right, yeah. So it's definitely a nighttime thing. When I was at university, it was a lot easier, of course. My last year of uni, I was doing a master's, so there was a lot of home time, shall we say. So I basically wrote a novel that hasn't been published and isn't really good enough to publish. Back at university. I've written another novel that I was able to do during lunch breaks and stuff at my old job, and this latest one, Elite, that was all done at night because I changed jobs last year and it's a bit more intense now. I don't really have time for breaks, so it's all done at night. But I'm a real fast typer. I use a Dvorak keyboard, can knock out 1,000 words in an hour. So like the first draft for my elite novel, 115 words, I think, 115,000 words, sorry, and I knocked that out in 3 months, so it's not it's not too hard. The draft isn't that hard, but it's the editing and making it perfect afterwards, of course. But yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to do it once you just if you can just dedicate an hour a night, sort of thing. It's not that bad.
Yeah, that was kind of my next question. Like, what's your schedule like, man? You got kids, obviously, right? You're working full time. What are you just kind of chipping away at it each day?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess it's varied with my jobs and different things, but basically, I don't do any writing stuff when the kids are awake. Basically, I don't allow that for myself when the kids are awake. It's all about the kids, except for obviously he's awake right now, but um, it's all right. I'm sure Melinda will look after him. Yeah, basically, once the kids are in bed, 7:30, then the night is mine. Do some stuff with the wife, do some weights, do some writing. Whatever sort of way I want to handle it. But I've got 3-4 hours at night I can do things. So and basically the weekends are written off with family. So it's up to 20 hours a week that I've got to do writing, but then less to do other me things.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds
Yeah.
like you got a good schedule down, so you can get stuff done and still live your life.
Well, it's funny. Like before the Elite Dangerous novel, I was struggling. I guess just to find time. I just didn't know how to find the time for that stuff, and my writing rate was pretty slow. But come my successful Indiegogo campaign, that really hit it home. I was like, oh my god, I've actually got these people have paid me money to write this story. I have to write this story. It sort of put quite a bit of pressure on me. So that made it easier. It clarified the goal for me. So I that really set it up for me, and I guess it just sort of carried that on really.
I see. So, what about like did you take a lot of writing classes in school and that kind of thing, or has there been books or websites or something that's kind of helped you refine your craft?
Yeah, most of those really. The odd little cheap writing class that I've done growing up, and even a couple of years ago I did one as well. That was little tidbits of it useful, but not a heck of a lot of things. Read a lot of books. I've got a library of writing books, about this wide on my bookcase, and they all help in certain aspects. The writers are normally authors, and they have a thing that they focus on, and all those things have helped. But I suppose the most help, if you look at my growth as a writer, when I went to storyfix.com, edit torrent, and when I started listening to David Farland's Daily Kick, he's a science fiction fantasy writer, davidfarland.net. All those guys sort of give a lot of free advice. In fact, storyfix.com, that's basically their whole website's just about writing better, focusing on the initial parts of the story. And I've learned quite a lot from those guys. And of course, when I got my publisher for the Elite book, and I edited the story 4 times, kind of thing, and got it to where I thought was best. And they edited it. Well, they edited the first 2 chapters and made quite a bit of changes, to be honest. And they said, "This is what we want to see." Went to my own edit again, and then it was sort of basically signed off. So that just getting their professional publisher editor to look at it, that was probably the biggest gain I've actually ever got in my entire career. It's great.
Was that hard to take when they started going through it and saying what they wanted to see here and there? Like, does it, as the creator of something like that, do you take it personally, or do you kind of just let it roll off your back and then get back to work?
Um, yeah, in that case, I was like, oh, man, that sounds like a lot of work, but it was, so it wasn't great on that behalf. But on the other half, I was learning a lot, and I was really happy to do that. And as long as I'm learning things, it's great. And so I didn't take it personally. I've been involved in a lot of critique groups over the internet and face to face, and I went from one to the other because I just wasn't really getting any benefit out of them because it was just people like me giving their opinion, and I didn't always agree with that opinion. I didn't really feel like I was getting an authority telling me, look, if you do this, this, and this, that'll make things better. I didn't really get that feeling. So those were could be a bit annoying, but when a professional comes in and says, look, these things will make it better, then cool, let's do that and let's learn it and let's improve.
I see. So let me ask you, man, along the way, have there been any like mistakes or lessons learned that you could share with us?
Um, well, I mean, I've just been learning the entire time, so I think yeah, I've made mistakes everywhere. But I think the first novel that I sat down to write, which I wrote at university, was just written very poorly. I mean, I hadn't even mastered things like paragraphs, and when you end speech marks, you normally put a comma, speech mark, he said, or something. I hadn't even mastered that. It was just formatting, grammatical issues that were just, amateurish and laughable, really. At the time, I thought I was doing awesome, but even just 1 year later, looking back at it, I thought I couldn't believe what I'd written there. Um, uh, there's no sort of one sort of major revelation that really stands out. It's just been a progressive improvement. I learned something, send something through to publisher. If I'm really unlucky, they just give a full rejection. Some places actually really give good advice, and you process that back in and you improve for the future. So just steady improvement. No major faux pas that I remember. Yeah.
What do you remember some of that advice that you received that you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, just staying in the person's head. It's writing has really definitely moved towards close and third point of view sort of communication. So when you're writing, is obviously a point of view character that you're writing about, and really getting inside their head. So all the description is coloured by the emotion and mental space of that person. Now, I'm looking at a white wall right now, but if I was pissed off, it would be a dark grey when I would focus on the shadows from the light sort of thing. While if I was in a happy mood, then it would just be a nice bright white wall and everything is good kind of thing. Staying in that point of view and not sort of skipping out, like describing something that I wouldn't see from the eyes of that character. That sort of knocks out that vision that you're trying to create. Keep the reader in the story. You can sort of knock them out if suddenly you do something out of whack that character wouldn't know, see, experience, kind of thing. That was kind of one that I thought I was actually pretty good at, to be honest, but I just was just the occasional just sort of stepping out of what I should be doing, getting me back in and really cutting down on detail. Again, something that's just been a steady improvement, but you really got to go through your novel and say, do I need this word, this sentence? Do I actually absolutely have to have it? If I can get away with not having it or having half as many words, just do it. Just skimp it right down, get rid of absolutely all the fat. You've got to be quite harsh, really. I mean, you've written this 115,000 words. They're your baby, but you've got to go in there. You've just got to hack and cut and kill it. That can be quite hard. You've got to be really honest with yourself. You might like this scene, this sentence, whatever, but if it's not absolutely needed, it's got to go. And that's quite hard to just get that in your head, to get the right mental space to be truthfully honest with yourself that you like it, but the book will be better off without it. So chuck it. That's probably the number one, really. Cut.
Yeah, man, it sounds like there's got to be quite a balance there, because there's, on the one side, if you don't have enough detail, because maybe you want to see something get finished, then people are going to be missing parts of that story, or not really engaging with that character. But then on the other hand, you could go so into detail that you may lose somebody along the way too. It sounds like something that you can only really refine and master through just continuing that process and cutting stuff out, like you said, and then adding stuff if needed. Also, I mean, it sounds like work. It sounds like you got to put the time in.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. So like the draft was 110, 115,000 words. I got up to, with successive edits, I got it up to 132,000 words, adding more value, adding more detail, expanding this. And then by the time it was released, it was down to 96,000. So, cut a lot out. and
Yeah.
a whole chapter was removed in the end. Publishers here would whack this chapter out, and that's cool. But you look at, oh, I spent all this time crafting the scene, and then poof, gone. You know, it's, can be a bit hard,
Yeah, but I
but
would imagine.
you go for
Sorry about that. The internet, man. I apologize.
it. It's okay.
Uh, I would imagine though that even having to cut that stuff out, yeah, it's probably frustrating because you know you put the hours and the time in, but that what you put into that character is still in the back of your mind as you continue on writing. So you still even have some of the history of the character that maybe nobody else does, but it helps with that. It helps keep moving the story forward. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I wrote that story, I did a lot of background details on the characters. Who are they? What are their backgrounds? Um, Actually, very cool. On my crowdfunding campaign, I sold the name of the protagonist and sold
Mm.
minor character names as well. And that was really cool because my best man actually brought my protagonist, and so he used his name mainly to piss off another mate, I think, because they were all going to be reading it and he didn't want to, yeah, read that guy's name without the text. But it's really cool. He's Scottish. He's Scottish, and so I based the character sort of on him, his name, and made the character Scottish, and that led to all this cool stuff. Like he's a crazy space pirate who likes to run around in this full Scottish gear, basically. You know, big guns and the belt. I can't remember what it's called right now, but he's got a belt with a personal shield in it, and you know, the skirt and everything. So he's sort of a crazy space pirate, and all these cool nuances, which I think make him really cool. I wouldn't have really got without the crowdfunding campaign. And the same thing for naming the minor characters. You know, they came up with names, and that sort of led my mind in different directions. So it was really, in a way, it was quite collaborative, I suppose. The story is definitely better for having gone through crowdfunding for sure.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it sounds like a great tip, honestly. Like when you come to, maybe somebody's getting ready to write the story out for a new game, and they need inspiration for their main character. Well, it's like look to your best friend, look to somebody that you know, and take some of their personality traits and put them into that character, and that may help the creative process. Like I really like what you said there. I mean that just in my mind when I have to when I get to that point of needing to create story or whatever, that's gonna help definitely.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You don't want to make it a carbon copy of that person, obviously. Don't get upset, but
No, for sure.
just taking aspects and stuff. Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, man, what would you do if 18-year-old John walked up and said, "Hey, I wanna start writing for games"? What advice would you give him?
Writing for games. Well, it's hard work writing. You know, like I said, you're just constantly working at it, constantly getting better. I mean, even the pros are still learning. You don't stop learning, so just don't give up. That's the first step. A lot of people give up. Um, and the second big advice, I guess, is look out for those opportunities. I mean, The Elite Dangerous, I've got a novel out there on Amazon and everywhere, and I've only really got that because I was in the right place at the right time. You know, I had the writing skill, I had the ability to set up that crowdfunding campaign, and I was able to be aware that Elite was doing a Kickstarter. All these things just sort of fell into place at the right time for me. So if I had been looking, if I had been preparing myself and learning, then that sort of perfect storm wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't have my novel. So don't just hide anywhere, hide and do your typing, and don't communicate with the world. You've got to be out there. I mean, if I hadn't produced some fan fiction that was out there and people had read, they wouldn't have known about me and supported my Indiegogo campaign. So, you know, putting my work out there, getting a bit of a little name for myself, helped me get my funding to write the novel. And all these little things, being out there, talking to people, being aware of things. If you're not out there, if you're not putting yourself out there, these opportunities won't happen. So you got to be out there. That's a biggie. So yeah,
Yeah.
same for Shallow Space. If I hadn't been looking, if I hadn't seen him, if he hadn't been around at that right time, we wouldn't have met, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. So again, you just got to be out there and looking. Both my last two opportunities have just been um, through looking and putting myself out there, basically.
Yeah, it's great advice. And so I was gonna, you kind of answered the question some, but basically you did some fan fiction and whatnot, and that built a small fan base, and that's kind of what helped your crowdfunding take off.
Yeah, so I mean, the crowdfunding was, the supporters were mostly Elite fans. So Elite's got quite a bit of a fan base in the UK. That's where the game was made. A little bit New Zealand, not so much America. A little bit, but mostly Commonwealth, I'd say. And I had been heavily involved in an Elite bulletin board. Basically between games 3 and 4, there was like almost 20 years. Yeah, and 20 years, yeah. And keeping the flame alive was people like myself and other people in the UK writing fan fiction for each other to read on these bulletin boards. So we'd created this huge saga, the huge Plasma Accelerator saga. Um, probably getting close to 1 million words between all the collaborative authors. Basically, we wrote our own characters, and they started working towards a point where they started interacting, and then we started sharing characters, and all this crazy shit was happening. So all the people that had read that, knew of me, and they were able to say, yeah, I've read his stuff, and he's quite cool, and I love that saga and those kind of things. So that really helped. It definitely wasn't probably the main exponent of it. People wanted to help. I had to beg and plead at some points as well. Just to get every dollar. It's a really nerve-wracking process doing crowdfunding. Because most of the people that support it are other side of the planet. I'd go to bed, and the first thing I do in the morning is wake up and check my email, see how many pledges have come through. And some days it'd be like, oh, that's really awesome, and some days it'd be nothing. I'm like, oh my god. And then the days were drifting by, and I wasn't really getting close to target. I was probably $2,000 off with about 3 days to go, and I think, oh my god, damn, this thing's not going to happen, which is quite heartbreaking. You put a lot of effort into making the campaign, and looking for people and spreading the news about it, and it's gonna fail on you. And I felt really really bad. And this one guy came along, and he put like $1,000 into it, and they contacted us. So shit, that's really generous. Are you sure? And he's like, yeah, no, the passion in your videos, I just have to do it. You definitely want to write the story. And that was so awesome. I can't believe how generous that was. And then the thing with crowdfunding is, and especially with Indiegogo, the way they do things is success builds success. If people think, oh, he doesn't look like he's going to make it, they're not going to bother putting their money on it. But if you look like you are going to make it, then you're more likely to get the money from those people on the fence. So once I got that extra hit, I was a lot closer. Suddenly I looked like I was going to do it. Then more money came in, and I made it with 5 minutes to spare, I think. So it's a very, very scary, very fun process. It's out of this world. It was definitely a really good one. Yeah.
That's great to hear, man. That's awesome. So, I mean, I love what you said. Get yourself out there, because that's going to help start building relationships. And then when an opportunity like this comes your way, boom, you've got,
Mm,
you've got friends online. You've got people that will help share this kind of thing. And so
that's
just
right.
getting out there right now sounds like great advice.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I wish I'd done more, than I had already had. Looking back, if I'd done more before, it would have made it so much easier. But yeah, you got to start at some point, and you start with one follower or two followers, and you,
So,
you just got to keep going from there.
yeah, man, absolutely. So speaking of getting out there, what's the best way people can connect with you?
Um, well, yeah, I've got a website, www.andhearthewheel.co.nz. It's a line from a T.S. Eliot poem. That's the name of my Elite Dangerous novel. So Twitter @andhearthewheel. If you look on Facebook for John Harper or Elite and Hear the Wheel, and if you want to say hello, email john@andhearthewheel.co.nz. Might be sensing a bit of a theme there of and hear the wheel is my space on the internet. All one word, and hear the wheel, one word.
Okay. All right, great, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll make sure Why don't you go ahead and email me all of those links that you just gave so that I can get them in the notes so people can connect because this the internet halfway across the world or whatever it decides it doesn't want to work too well, so things get a little choppy here and there. So let's make sure we get those links so people can connect with you.
Yeah, we'll do, mate. Thank you.
All right, buddy. You have yourself a great day, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, mate. Gotta get myself a coffee now.
All right, buddy. Take it easy.
You too. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye.